Today we will be examining one of the most famous supporting characters in gaming history and a personal favorite of mine. It's none other than Luigi. Luigi has evolved through the years, from being a simplistic recolor of Mario, to the main protagonist in his own series of wildly popular ghost hunting games, to even having a Year of Luigi celebration from Nintendo. We will be exploring his evolution, and how Nintendo's attitude towards the character has changed in recent times. Let us begin. In 1980, the Game & Watch was developed and released by Nintendo. This handheld form of entertainment started with the simplistic concept of being able to take games on the go, as well as serve a practical use in being a watch. In 1983, this concept was expanded to include the feature of multiple screens, which now provided the potential for local multiplayer. This is where Luigi made his first appearance. The game was about Mario and Luigi passing packages back and forth in order to load up a delivery truck. Many people don't realize that this was the first instance of our introduction to the character. The exterior of the device is what's important. We can see that the very first iteration of the character is just a duplicate of Mario, with only the colors being changed. That's because the graphics for this title were taken from the arcade game Mario Bros., which released around the very same time period. I'd like to give an accurate date here, but sources were very conflicting for this. The consensus is that both titles were developed at the same time, but the Game & Watch came out a few weeks earlier. Either way, the games share nothing in common in terms of how they play, with the arcade version being much more in line with the typical scenario we would find Mario in. It is only in this title, when two players are enabled, that we will be introduced to Luigi with his green overalls. He is looking just as he was presented on the front of the Game & Watch title, being an exact duplicate with a color change. This is unfortunately how Luigi would remain for quite some time. In 1984, he would appear as part of the Wrecking Crew series, which was released on arcade machines and for the Famicom in 1985. However, he was still relegated to Player 2. Interestingly, when playing single-player mode, a CPU-controlled Luigi would appear and will constantly try to stop Mario from completing his job. He does this by hitting him off the beams, which makes this one of the only titles where Luigi is actively trying to sabotage his brother's efforts. What's very important about 1985 is the Nintendo Entertainment System arrived in America, forever changing the trajectory of how we consume video games, pretty much single-handedly dragging the market out of the game crash of 1983. And with the launch of this juggernaut system came Super Mario Bros., a title which was built on years of hard work and development, with Shigeru Miyamoto listed as the game's director, producer, designer, and artist. Needless to say, Miyamoto's impact on the gaming industry is astounding. In this title, Luigi is only accessible if you play with two players. You can see that Luigi once again was just a green-colored Mario clone. This would be explained by Miyamoto in a phone interview with the New Sunday Times newspaper on August 10, 1986. When asked about Luigi, he said the following: "To make it a game, we had to have two similar characters to compete. And Luigi is Japanese for the word similar. He is a hero, but of the Chaplin-esque type." With this short interview snippet, we not only get a solid understanding for where Luigi got his name from, but also what purpose he was to serve in games designed during this period. He was only included to provide the player two functionality. It was a pretty depressing outlook for the character. The year is 1986. Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels is released as a Japanese-only sequel. It's substantially harder than the first. But with this title comes Luigi's first big moment. He is able to be picked for single-player mode, and this time he's not just a clone. His controls are distinct, and he has his own gameplay mechanics. He can jump higher than Mario, but suffers from reduced ground friction, making him slightly slippery to control at certain points in the game. This is when Luigi made his first true appearance as a playable character, a moment that would only be enjoyed by Japanese audiences. But it's clear at this point, Nintendo was willing to experiment with making Luigi more than just being Mario's brother, elevating his importance as a character. In 1988 came a Western sequel, Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, a title that has a huge history behind it. Luigi is finally given his own unique look. He's taller, he can jump higher, and he's slightly slower than Mario. Things that were very familiar to Japanese audiences already, and these are attributes that we still see with Luigi even today. Unfortunately, the following title, Super Mario Bros. 3, which released in 1988 in Japan, and a full 2 years later in 1990 in North America, had gone back to the original style of Luigi being relegated to a Mario recolor, and was accessible only through second-player play. It's mind-blowing how much Nintendo changed their opinion around this period. Just when you start getting a bit of consistency for the character, he's immediately thrust backwards to being player 2. Normally it's at this point in my research where I would be looking into the developers, seeing what changes took place to justify this inconsistency. But it's all the same people. Miyamoto is still directing, producing, and designing. It's clear that there is additional mechanics and polish present, but removing much-loved features from previous titles seems strange, especially considering what usually occurs with Nintendo development. Later titles that are released on the system tend to harness more of the processing power. Developers already have it worked out as to how to go about developing games with the best practices at this point. So it's strange to me that they had Luigi returning to being a clone, as it's unlikely to be a hardware restriction. It kind of shows that Miyamoto didn't believe that the character was important enough to be making a return to the series, as his focus was still on Mario. During this time period, there were some animated shows that I won't be covering in today's video, but it's worth noting that Luigi was depicted as being a sidekick who helped out Mario. He was just as brave, though, an attribute that would soon change in later iterations of the character. In late 1990, a few very important things happened. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System was released in Japan, along with one of its 2 launch titles being Super Mario World, a game that would go on to be described as the graphical holy grail that retro-styled games aspire to. While the title was absolutely stunning, controls feeling crisp, and the introduction of new mechanics, things were not looking good for Luigi. He was once again a reskinned Mario. Then it happened. Luigi finally got his big break in a commonly confused part of gaming history. Luigi was about to get his first appearance in a standalone title. Introducing Luigi's Hammer Toss, an LCD game watch that was only available as a promotional item in McDonald's in North America and Japan. This is the first time that Luigi was featured by himself. The gameplay essentially was similar to what you would expect from an arcade title. Hammer Brothers would throw hammers at Luigi, and he would deflect them. If he succeeds, he gets 10 points, and if he fails, he loses a life. It is worth noting that Peach and Mario also both received watches as part of this promotion. So it's not like it was done just for Luigi. This would mark the beginning of things looking up. He begins making appearances in a variety of different Nintendo franchises. In an effort to keep the video concise, we will only be touching on the key ones. The year is 1992 and Super Mario Kart is released. Luigi is back to how he looked in Super Mario Bros. 2, being taller and leaner than Mario. It's important because with this title, Luigi's appearance has been consistent since. He has never appeared again in a mainline title as a simple recolor. In 1993, Mario is Missing is released. I actually owned this game on the SNES. My father bought it for me, knowing my adoration for the Mario franchise, and I was in for a lovely surprise with this one. True to the name, Mario was indeed missing from this title, and to many people this would be their first experience with Luigi being front and center. I don't want to go on a huge tangent here, but I will say that this game is a slow-paced, painful education title. It was one of the weirdest decisions Nintendo ever authorized and was a pretty bad experience. You walked around different cities, picking up clues and finding out information to be able to answer quizzes. You did this because Bowser had an evil plan and was trying to drown the planet by melting the Antarctic with hairdryers. If that doesn't sound like it made a lot of sense, it's because it did not. After this masterpiece, Luigi was not to be seen as the main character for a long time. As time passed, the next generation of systems began to appear. The Nintendo 64 was released. Super Mario 64 made its appearance in 1996 without Luigi, only for us to find out later in an Iwata-esque interview with Yoshiaki Koizumi the following: when we made the first prototype, Mario and Luigi were on a flat field. We ran it that way, but when we made the landforms. Because of hardware limitations, we had a choice between cutting Luigi or making more elaborate landforms. Then, in tears, we had to ask Luigi to leave. The next time someone tries to tell you Luigi isn't underappreciated by Nintendo, please let them know that the poor guy got cut for landforms. Luigi would not find himself starring as the lead in any titles on the 64 platform, but his time to shine was coming. Propelling himself into superstardom with the release of the GameCube comes Luigi's Mansion, an action-adventure game that was a launch title for the system. It was incredible to see Nintendo finally put some faith in the character that had for so long been living in his brother's shadow. But was this because Shigeru Miyamoto had finally had a change of heart about Luigi? Nope. At the E3 Expo that showed off the title in 2001, Miyamoto stated the following when asked about the inspiration behind Luigi's Mansion. "A lot of my staff members have been saying, 'Are we doing Mario again? Are we doing Mario again? Can't we do something with Luigi?' So we decided this time that in between doing the last Mario and the next one that maybe we could squeeze Luigi in there somewhere. But I did want to put Mario in the game, so I did suggest that maybe he could come out from underneath a bed or something, but they didn't really like that idea." The fact that the staff were the reason behind Luigi's push is further confirmed in a Space World interview later that year when Miyamoto was asked why Luigi's Mansion was a launch title and Super Mario Sunshine wasn't. "Well, you know that some members really wanted to release Luigi pretty bad, so that's why. And of course, if possible, I wanted to release Sunshine first, but at the time I was devoting most of my time to Pikmin and the aspects I wanted to make. And there's got to be something big in the launch schedule, so this time it's going to be Luigi's Mansion, Pikmin, Mario Sunshine, and Zelda." But yes, I was a bit disappointed by the fact that Mario was not the first game for GameCube. Though Miyamoto was not the source of the idea for Luigi's Mansion, it's nice to see he listened to his team and went through with the development of the title, putting aside his own conflicted feelings about the matter. After this title, however, we would not hear from Luigi for a long time. This brings us to February 14, 2013. Satoru Iwata, president of Nintendo, starts off a much-anticipated Nintendo Direct wearing a green Luigi hat. With this Direct, we began the year of Luigi. He was finally going to get his time in the spotlight, kicking off the year with a sequel to the much-loved Luigi's Mansion for the Nintendo 3DS. In a Polygon interview in 2013, Miyamoto was asked the following: "With so many characters to choose from, what made you and the others at Nintendo decide Mario's brother needed a year of celebration?" To which he replied, "Well, Luigi has been one of our characters for many years, but we've never really had much in the way of games that have Luigi in the starring role. He's had sort of a more prominent role in the Mario and Luigi series, and there is one of those games coming out this year. Also, with a Luigi's Mansion sequel coming, we felt it was really the time to make this the year of Luigi." From this interview, it's clear that Miyamoto has warmed up to the idea of Luigi being featured in games and being able to carry them without the need of Mario. Other game releases that were involved in the year of Luigi celebration included New Super Luigi U, which was an expansion pack for the new Super Mario Bros. U, Mario and Luigi Dream Team for the 3DS, and finally Dr. Luigi, the sixth entry in the Dr. Mario series. At the end of the day, it's nice to see that Luigi got some love and was celebrated, even if the major titles were put onto the 3DS instead of the Wii U. In 2019, we saw the month of Luigi to celebrate the release of Luigi Mansion 3, a title that ended up being one of the best-selling games on the Nintendo Switch. Overall, it's fair to say that Nintendo has put a lot more faith in the only accessible and multiplayer Mario Recolor, and he's certainly evolved significantly. As for the future, most likely a Luigi Mansion 4 is on the horizon, as Nintendo acquired the studio known as Next Level Games in early 2022. They were responsible for both Luigi Mansion sequels, likely learning from their mistakes with Rare. Keep your good developer teams close, because they really do make a difference to a system's success. That's been it for today's video. Thank you so much for everyone who has been subscribing and commenting. These videos take a long time to make, so I'm glad they are being enjoyed. If you like the content, Consider subscribing to the channel and turning the notification bell on, mainly because I don't have a regular upload schedule at the moment, as I'm trying to make sure that these videos are released when they are ready, opposed to attempting to meet an upload schedule. If you have suggestions, please let me know what you would like me to cover next. They help out heaps. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.